Okay, so this is how we're going to rebuild the Diff. This is for a Tekno EB48 2.0. So I ran this Diff today, and now we're going to rebuild it. So let's unscrew this. These are titanium screws, aftermarket, for lighter weight, for better performance. So we pop this apart. It's a little discolored, but it's actually in decent shape. So let's start to take it apart. Pull the pin. Get the out drive, the bearing. Use this little hook to get the seal and the washer out. And be careful with these O-rings. They, we don't want to cut those, so be very careful. So now let's clean out the cup. This is just a first pass. We're going to clean it a little bit better. Got some simple green. There's some debris in there. Let me get that out of there. Grabbing some Q-tips, kind of get in that channel. Get a good Q-tip. Okay, so that's clean. Set that aside. This one, now that I sprayed it with the simple green, do another pass with the little rag or cloth. And I like to use some Q-tips, get in here and kind of get in that channel, kind of get in all these little grooves, flip it over, get inside here. This is pretty clean. You can take it further if you want, spray it again with the simple green and really get it super clean, but this is pretty good for most times. If you got some more time, you can detail it out, but yeah, that's pretty good. So then these bearings are in good shape. I just wipe off any surface debris on there, kind of feel them out. If they need some more cleaning, obviously you can use some brake clean or motor spray and get that out and clean that up is fine. So those are good. So then I wipe the O-ring, just kind of do a light wipe to get some of the old diff oil or anything dirty off of there. Just kind of make sure they're clean. And then the shims, or I guess we call that a shim. Wipe those off. And then the out drives, I clean where the old grease was at, make sure they're clean. That guy, make sure you're really just wiping the shaft part off there is fine. And now the gears, what I do is I take that gear, and then the cross pins with the gears, and I spray them with simple green and just kind of lightly go over them. And then also take some compressed air. That makes sure that all the grooves are clean. I'm going to take one more Q-tip to the diff cup in here, and it seemed like there was still some dirty fluid in there. So I think that's good. So next, I'm going to take some grease. I have this thing called green grease that I've got from Automotive Store. You can use whatever grease, but I'll take some of that, and I'll start with the out drives. Put about that much on there. A little bit more than that. There we go. That's pretty good. And then I'll take 1/2 of the diff. I'll put some grease in the channel where the O-ring is going to go. That might be a bit much, but that's okay. Same for the other side. I will put some in the channel. I probably shouldn't be putting too much, but I do want to get a little bit in the channel so it doesn't tear the O-ring. So that's good. So now we'll take the bearing. If you want to put a drop of oil or make some maintenance to it, this is the time to do it, but I know these are pretty good shape. So the other side, I'll take the bearing from the other side. Don't forget those. It's annoying when you forget. So we have that half of the diff. We got the out drive. We're going to put it in there. The grease kind of gets squeezed there, but we'll air that out. So here, almost forgot. I like to put some grease on the O-rings. Just use my finger to get a dab of grease on there. So now I'll take the O-ring, use my finger, and just gently put it into the channel with some pliers, and then we'll take the shim, cover that, and then take the cross pin with some needle nose here. Make that about even, and then put the cross pin so that way they're even with the holes. You'll see the slot in the out drive lines up with the cross pin and these holes. You want all this to be even. I'll show you why we do that here in a moment. So we're going to take the other half of the diff. The bearing is in place. There's the out drive. Out drive goes in. We take the greased O-ring, kind of use our finger to kind of smush it on the out drive shaft. Take the needle nose and just kind of gently, we don't want to abuse the O-ring or get it ripped, so just kind of gently work that in there. Grab the seal or the shim, kind of push that down on there. And then we're going to grab the cross pin. This one's a little trickier to put in, but if you notice, the slit in the out drive is where the hole in the shaft is. So if you know where that's at, and then you line it up with, you see there's these little indents in the out drive. So I line that up with an indent here, and then so that way it goes in like that. Can be a little tricky. There we go. So now we got there. So then just kind of turn it and make sure it feels smooth. Same with the other half. I'm not sure. Oops, it wants to slide out. That feels nice and smooth. Hold that even. Set that down. Set that down. So now we're going to use the wheel nut tool for the Tekno. Works great for this. And just set it in there. Grab your favorite Diff fluid. So I fill it about 20% full to start. We're going to do this multiple times. And grab the gear. And I use the needle nose. Put it in. I'm kind of working it side to side to make sure it recessed on that pin. And I kind of turn it to make sure it's recessed and in there. Set that down. So then I take the first cross pin assembly. And you'll notice it's got the, the slit in it, or kind of like building a log home, or so this part will go up. So you take the needle nose, and then it goes into the cross like that, and slide the gears off, spider gears off to the side. Kind of make sure it's seated down. It's very important to make sure it seats down. Kind of turn it and work it just to make sure everything is down there pretty good. And then I take the other spider gear, and now this part goes opposite, so that slit will face down. So I take the needle nose, take this, rotate 90 degrees. Now this one goes in like that. Okay, good. That scooted down. Work the bottom out drive to make sure everything is turning. And that is pushed down very good. So now I'm going to fill the diff fluid up with maybe about 1 millimeter from the top, and I'll show you why I do that. So that's pretty good. That's about 1 millimeter from the top, and you'll get the feel for how to do that. So we're going to take this gear, the final gear, have it upside down, and then we're just going to simply kind of twist as we put it in here to make sure that it seats in there. It should start dropping in by gravity. Perfect. So now I'm just going to wipe off any excess. That looked like it was about the right level of fluid. So I'm just coming around here, wiping off there. And I take this little cross pin and or this little tool. This may not be needed absolutely, but I take a little bit extra out. Now, very important, we want to line up. I'm going to turn this bottom out drive, and that turns the gear. We want everything lined up crossways. So we got everything lined up sideways, or everything lined up very nice here. So I'm going to put this in the tool, and you can see what we're going to do is we're going to push this up on that, but we need to make sure that the pin is equal, which it is, and we want to make sure that the pin is in line with those holes. So as I turn this like this, and I can see these outdrive slits are like this. So when I push this down, it's going to be lined up. But then I also do one more trick. I use two very skinny driver tools, and I put this in this hole here, and then you'll see I put this in the screw hole, and it kind of makes a little jig. And I take the other skinny tool and I put it here, and I line it up in the other screw hole, and I just kind of slowly push down, and everything should line up, get a nice little pop. So now that cross pin is in there, very nice. And I take my driver tool, make sure that the clutch is set very soft, put that on, and let's screw this in. Now, very important, don't even trust the clutch. Go very gently until you feel very, very minimal resistance at the end. Just very gently. What's happening is there's a lot of heat in those screws and that plastic cup. So it's easy to strip those out. So just finish this up. Slow it down, slow it down. Okay, easy, easy. Come back around, we're going to do the last one. Now it should feel very smooth Feels very nice, very smooth. Now there's some grease around the edges, and I'm going to blow that off with some compressed air. The other tip, what I do is I let that sit for about 3 or 4 minutes and let the screws cool down and the plastic cool down before I take the driver for a respective time. I'm not doing that on this one, but generally I'll let it sit for a couple minutes. Now you want to come back up here and snug these. Snug is the magic word. You don't want to over tighten and strip those out. And I just kind of gently keep going a little bit more, and you'll just have to get used to the feel. You'd rather be snug but not too tight. They really don't leak. I haven't had these leak around here. I've had them leak here before from the O-rings, but just be careful on stripping these out. It's really easy to overstrip the plastic out drives. And then what I do is I take the compressed air, and you may want to check these screws again maybe in a couple minutes. Once the temperature kind of settles down from the tool, from the driver, the battery powered driver, they may loosen up a little bit. So that feels good. Diff is smooth. I like it. And the purpose of blowing it off with the compressed air is easier to spot. If there's a leak or an issue, then you can see it. You can see it happen. You can see if there's an issue. So there's no fluid. So if you are seeing fluid, you know it's pretty much from a leak, and it's not from like a sloppy job. So there we have it. EB48 2.0 Tekno Diff build probably applies to most other 8-scale